Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. It's the 28th of October, and as always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information. You can find that anytime you want at 1-800-472-0391. That's the Alaska Weather Information Line. Find us online at weather.gov/Alaska, or if you can't find what you want, let me know. Send me an email at david.snider@noaa.gov, and I'm happy to help. Here's a look at the advisories we have across Alaska tonight. We'll start in southeast as high pressure is building in off the mainland and also across western Canada. A weak area of low pressure will exit and fog may form overnight, and some of that could be dense, under 1/4 of a mile in visibility for just about everywhere in southeast tonight, with the exceptions of Haines and Skagway and probably up toward Yakutat. So Gustavus, Sitka, Ketchikan, Wrangell, Petersburg, and Juneau, and everywhere in between. Watch out for some fog by early tomorrow morning. A look up to the north shows that winter weather advisories are still in effect, as are wind advisories from Denali all the way to the eastern Alaska Range through tonight. Gusts up to about 60 miles per hour may be possible for the windy spots there. Everywhere north and west from the central interior to the Yukon Flats out toward Ambler, you're under a winter weather advisory for accumulating snow, and for the upper Kobuk and Noatak valleys and including Ambler, that could mean anywhere from 12 to 21 inches of more snow piling up there through late Sunday. Everywhere else, you're looking at lesser amounts, about 4 to 7 inches there. Some of that could be blowing around, and at times could include at least a little bit of ice accumulation from some minor freezing rain, generally under 1/10 of an inch or so. So snow across the central and western interior, and wind continues across the Alaska Range for just a little while longer. Our satellite picture's not doing so well on the regular show kind of stuff, so we're going to try something new tonight. Here's another way to look at the satellite. This is the infrared satellite, and the blue colors indicate very cold air at the top of the cloud here. So you can see the bulk of the storm moving up here. This is a satellite picture from earlier today and through the mid-afternoon hours. You can see the trail of moisture, what was the atmospheric river, pointing once at northern parts of southeast, and then as it turns, it gradually fades away, and so does the rain. Drier air out here across the Gulf of Alaska and out across the western Bering Sea. Colder air as well, as low pressure is seen moving right across the western chain. That's going to spin up into a stronger storm here in the coming days. The next surge is moving from southwest to north and east, and this is what's bringing snow to the central and northwestern interior again tonight. Another surge of rainfall will move up from the North Pacific and across Bristol Bay and into south central as we move back into Sunday, and some of that could turn into snow across the northern Susitna Valley. Let's take a look at this satellite picture in just a slightly different way. We're going to use water vapor imagery, and that's a satellite tool we use to actually pinpoint where the moisture is in the atmosphere and where it's a little bit drier. And the darker blue and purple shades are certainly the drier parts of the atmosphere. And once again, here's that atmospheric river shifting south and southeast. And a look out toward the west shows another surge of moisture building in, and that's heading for the southern Bering Sea, Bristol Bay, and into the interior once again. You can see another surge of that moisture working its way up across the Kobuk and Noatak valleys and into the western parts of the Brooks Range. That's what's brought you snow earlier today, last night, and through today, and a little bit of a break, and then another surge of that snow will be coming your way again. One wave is already exiting northern and eastern sections of Alaska. So when you put that all together, here's what it looks like under that. The radar picture, and of course we don't have radar coverage for all of our Alaska, but in some places we do, and out here across south and western Alaska you can see some areas of widespread rain and snow across the central and western interior, snow across some of the higher terrain there, and a little bit of precipitation across south and western Alaska. So a lot going on and a lot of moisture still moving our way from the south and west. Here's the surface chart. High pressures across the northern Gulf this afternoon at 1,031 millibars. We still have a trough sitting across southeast, and as this weakens, it's going to allow that fog to form later on tonight. We have several waves of low pressure across the Gulf. The bulk of the lower pressure is still down to the south and west, and it's going to encourage more development to move in from the west and southwest as we go through the rest of today and into tonight. There's a lot of rain falling across south and western Alaska and all the way up into the middle Yukon Valley, and just north of that around Ambler and Bettles, we're seeing some pockets of mixed precipitation and possibly even freezing rain. Across the northern sections of the coast, we're looking at light snow thanks to low pressure sitting across the Chukchi Sea at 990 millibars. That's really not going to move very much tonight. In fact, the coldest air will stay just to the north and west. Meanwhile, warmer air will continue to surge northward while southeast gets a quieter night. But again, watch out for that fog. Looking at south and west, areas of rainfall should be expected all the way from the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta into Bristol Bay and most of the chain, with low pressure down to about 978 millibars. Across the western Gulf, areas of rainfall will start to fill in a little bit further east toward Prince William Sound, covering Kodiak Island, reaching into Seward and up to Cook Inlet. Probably not quite to Anchorage just yet, but the further north you go, you start to run into some of that colder air, and that's where rain and snow may mix, and in some cases you may still see some minor freezing rain accumulations. Most of those places, again, will be under 1/10 of an inch. And across the upper Yukon Valley, snow showers will continue, and don't forget about the Kobuk and Noatak valleys. Those places there are still looking at about 12 to 21 inches. Colder air does make a run for the north coast as we get into Sunday. That surge of colder air continues trekking east and south as we get into the week. Snow showers will spread eastward along the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range and into the Copper River Basin, as well as areas across the northern Susitna Valley. And with that, we do expect more snow to fall, probably not at an alert or warning level, but it could make travel a little tricky north and south on the Parks Highway, south of Broad Pass, so keep that in mind. Low pressure south of the central chain at 974 millibars, spinning up a steady south flow, and that's going to push more rain into more of the North Gulf Coast. Southeast remains fairly dry with high pressure offshore at 1,030 millibars. That shifts a little bit further southward on Monday. Low pressure shifts a little bit further northward and weakens a little bit, 1,000 millibars there by your Monday afternoon. The trough of low pressure continues tracking north and east, and that's going to bring a little bit better chance of rainfall through Anchorage, gradually ending as we get into the afternoon. Warmer, wetter air spreading north and east will help to create snow across the central and eastern interior and parts of the north and eastern Beaufort Seacoast. High pressure behind that will drop a little bit further south and give us a little bit of a break in the weather, and you can see another weather maker is forming out to the west. Here's a look at temperatures in the morning. Then for southeast, 30s and 40s, south central, lower 30s, about 41 degrees in Kodiak, mid to upper 20s for the central Tanana Valley, as well as areas around Fairbanks. And you're looking at teens and 20s for the north slope. 25 around Nome and the Seward Peninsula, and low to mid 30s for south and west, with St. Paul coming in at 39. 41 for Sunday afternoon. Lower 40s for many around the Yukon Kuskokwim Delta. A little bit cooler as you head up the Yukon into the mid 30s there. Fairbanks about 34 at south central, upper 30s and lower 40s. Bristol Bay temperatures just shy of 50 degrees, and the north slope you're looking at teens and 20s, with south and east in the upper 40s and lower 50s for your Sunday afternoon. South central in the morning on Monday, back into the mid-30s. Some places will be close to freezing. 43 around Kodiak and Bristol Bay. Upper 30s and lower 40s for southeast. The interior, you're looking at lows back in the upper 20s. And you get back into the teens once you're into the Brooks Range. Arctic Village about 12. Notice Prudhoe Bay and Dead Horse very close to 10 degrees for Monday morning, and a cool start in Barrow, again 18 degrees and below freezing. 20s and 30s for Norton Sound, teens and 20s for Kotzebue Sound. St. Lawrence Island closer to 30 degrees. St. Paul, St. George in the upper 30s. The Alaska Peninsula, including Sand Point, about 44. Dutch Harbor and Unalaska, about 42. On Monday, look for highs back to the upper 40s, nearing 50 degrees for most of the peninsula, and Bristol Bay a little bit cooler. The Yukon Kuskokwim Delta and places like Bethel in the lower 40s. Upriver into the upper Kuskokwim and the middle Yukon Valley, lower to mid 30s. South central, mid to upper 40s, and still warming up in Kodiak. Southeast, upper 40s and lower 50s. The north slope, back in the teens and 20s with Nome nearing 33 degrees. Let's take it out a little bit further. Go into next week, and you can see the climate outlook shows there's a chance for warmer than average weather across the west coast, Seward Peninsula and Kotzebue Sound. And for southeast, you can see slightly cooler than average weather is possible all the way into the Copper River Basin. What about precipitation? We can do that too. The climate outlook has below normal precipitation for a large part of the central and southern interior, southwestern Alaska and Kodiak. There's a chance of that happening. As you get out in the southeast, you can see that chance for drier weather also extends into the panhandle. So an awful lot going on following this deluge of wet and, in some cases, snowy and windy weather around Alaska.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On to aviation weather now. You'll notice IFR to start your Sunday morning across the Yukon Delta and into eastern sections of Norton Sound and up into the Yukon Valley itself. MVFR spreading even further northward into the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range, just about and over the Dalton Highway. On the west side of the Alaska Range, watch for IFR. Most of southeast should be just fine in the morning, maybe some patchy fog here and there. MVFR across the Gulf and IFR for the eastern side of Kodiak Island all the way down the Pacific coast. By Sunday afternoon, low pressure is quickly making its way back into the northern Gulf and spreading rain across a large part of south central. IFR conditions should be expected across western Prince William Sound, eastern Kodiak Island, all the way down toward the Sand Point region and just south of the Pribilofs, with IFR developing across the western Alaska Range. Some breaks in that as we head northward toward Fairbanks, and then MVFR quickly fills back in across the Yukon Valley, with IFR fairly widespread as well. As you look at southeast, things are still fairly clear sailing there. Up north, MVFR conditions for the Chukchi Coast. That shifts eastward by Monday morning, with IFR shifting to the north-facing slopes of the Brooks Range and over Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass. Look for IFR out of the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta all the way down to the eastern parts of the chain and across the Wood-Tikchik Mountains, as well as Prince William Sound and into the northern Gulf. Again, that's the morning. As we get into the afternoon, MVFR begins to spread eastward into northern parts of southeastern Alaska. IFR conditions around the middle and eastern sections of the Tanana Valley. MVFR conditions for the Yukon and Kuskokwim valleys there, as well as parts of the eastern Bering Sea coast and the eastern chain, with a large bit of improvement for south central Kodiak Island and around the Bristol Bay region and the Alaska Peninsula. Here's a look at your past conditions for your Sunday. If you're flying, expect IFR, as we saw, developing around Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass as we get into Sunday afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, we expect to see IFR conditions developing through really most of the day for your Sunday. Rainy Pass looks to be fairly socked in as well. Windy Pass, expect to start at VFR, but watch yourself in the afternoon if you're flying back through there. IFR conditions should be developing as we go, with snow in the region. And Isabel Pass looking to see VFR conditions transitioning toward MVFR as we go through the afternoon. Mentasta Pass, watch for VFR conditions to MVFR as we go through Sunday afternoon. And it looks like Tanita Pass will start out with a relatively good visibility in ceilings, but lower to MVFR conditions as we go through Sunday afternoon. Portage Pass looking like IFR as you would expect, with rain moving in, and that'll mainly be on the Prince William Sound side, but watch for some changes on the Cook Inlet side as the day goes on as well. And Chilkoot and White Pass still looking pretty good. VFR conditions through most of your Sunday. As far as freezing levels go, the surface freezing line still well north across the northern Bering Sea, across the eastern Gulf. We still see lingering warmth across the eastern parts of Alaska, southeast, and all the way up toward just about Northway and Eagle, with the 2,000-foot freezing line. The levels go as high as 10,000 feet as you get down toward the Dixon entrance. And for western Alaska, levels range from about 2,000 feet just north of Immonik and all the way down toward the Bristol Bay region, 4,000 feet over the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. Look for levels to range from 6,000 to 8,000 feet. What about icing? Looks to be fairly widespread, but generally isolated moderate. It's a lot of what we're seeing today across the region. Levels ranging from about and above 4,000 feet across most of the mainland to about 6,000 to 8,000 feet across the central chain and southern Bering Sea. You can see that just about reaches parts of the Pribilofs there as we get into your Sunday afternoon. So keep watch on that, but right now, no huge threats for icing at this point. The jet stream is all over the place, but one big feature to watch is this trough of low pressure across the Bering and the North Pacific. Wind speeds there ranging from about 130 to 150 knots, and that broad and strong southwesterly flow is pushing another surge of moisture into south central and southwestern Alaska, and the winds moving that up into the interior of Alaska with moisture and the warmth could create some decent amounts of snow for many up across the Northland as we go into Sunday afternoon and Monday. In the meantime, the ridge that's holding across the Gulf is holding all of that back, keeping it from being a very progressive system, and southeast right now kind of in the doldrums, not a whole lot going on for you as a result. Look for a southwesterly flow over the western Gulf, anywhere from 20 to 40 knots or so. Light winds across most of southeast at this level. Southwesterlies 15 to 20 across most of the north and the interior of Alaska. And low pressure here south of the chain with wind speeds over the peninsula around 50 to 70 knots. At 3,000 feet, similar flow, but the low pressure system's just a little bit further west and south. Look for wind speeds ahead of that to reach into the 65 to 80 knot range. Light southwesterlies over the interior and the Bering Strait region, northerlies over the western chain, and for southeast, once again, fairly light winds coming off of high pressure, anywhere from 10 to 20 knots. A look at your turbulence graphic. You'll notice over Cook Inlet, considerable moderate is possible tomorrow below 4,000 feet for the Alaska Peninsula. You'll notice increasing areas of chop and turbulence across the eastern chain all the way out towards Sandpoint, Cold Bay up toward Port Huyden and Falls Pass, and across the central and western chain as well. Increasing areas of turbulence as that low pressure system is slowly tracking to the east and northeast. Most of the interior, the north slope, the west coast, and southeast should be A-OK for your Sunday and your flying weather there. We'll be back in just a few minutes with a look at your marine weather and, of course, the sea ice forecast. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider, and joining me again is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. Thanks again for joining us, Cindy.
Thanks for having me back, Dave.
Sure thing. And I love saying Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska's National Weather Service because that's not weather. Why is the Tsunami Program part of the National Weather Service?
Well, it's because the Weather Service absolutely rocks at warning people for every kind of, devastating natural hazard.
The mission of the Weather Service is to protect life and property. And so how does the Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska, which is a very unique office, again, within the Weather Service, it's not weather, how do those folks help us protect life and property?
The National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer is a national warning center, and we analyze seismic traces 24/7 all around the world. So when there's an earthquake anywhere on the planet, we see it and analyze it within minutes.
Within minutes, and
Within
there's
minutes.
actually a goal to have it under, was it 5 minutes?
If there is a tsunami warning to be issued for continental America, yeah, we must get that out, or shoot to get that out in 5 minutes.
Okay. Now that's not something I have ever learned to do, so I know it would be a struggle for me to do that under probably hours. But it is fascinating to watch, and the office is open on a regular basis for tours, right?
Absolutely. Come by Friday.
Okay.
Yep, every Friday at 1, 2, and 3 p.m. and they're open public free tours. And it's the most interesting place on the planet. You really should check it out.
Okay, and the office team is made up of people that are earth scientists, not meteorologists or atmospheric scientists. Talk about some of the types of people that work there.
Right, we are out of place in our National Weather Service, but we are geologists, geophysicists, oceanographers. We even have an astrophysicist on board, computer software architects, electronic technicians that are brilliant and innovative. Our software is all written in-house. Our instrumentation is designed in-house. So it's a really, really unique place, and it's just a couple handfuls of people that work there. So
sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ways to get a tsunami alert message is on Twitter.
Right.
And I can follow the Twitter address, and we'll put that up on the screen for you there. But it's usually a very quick message that tells you initially what the magnitude of an earthquake could be and about where its epicenter was. What are some of the other ways that you can get that alert message?
Well, Twitter's my favorite too.
Yeah.
And you don't even need a Twitter account to receive it. So
That's
it just comes in like an SMS message. But you can also receive it via email, weather radio, of course, the crawler on your television screen, on the internet, Google Alerts, marine radio if you're out in harbors and boats. Actually, marine radio is probably...
Yeah, it is a good one.
That's our partnership with the Coast Guard. We're really grateful for that, absolutely. But there's a variety of ways in dissemination.
Okay.
And locally, excuse me, I'm sorry, but locally in the communities, the sirens will go off as well.
Right. So lots of different ways to get that very important message very quickly when that matters to you. One of the ways that the Warning Center practices with communities is a test on a yearly basis, right?
Right.
How does that work?
Thanks for bringing that up. It's a controversial issue, but it's super important to help us warn better and really serve Alaskans. So the week of March 27th, the commemoration of the 1964 event, for that week we have a Tsunami Preparedness Week every year. We like communities to get out and do drills and practice and do everything we can to raise awareness. And part of that is a live code test where we actually issue the warning message live and we activate the emergency alert system, which means sirens go off, the TV crawler happens, and it's a test, 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 test.
We're
and
doing everything that would normally happen without the real threat of the tsunami, just to
Right.
practice as much as possible.
Right, and this
Okay.
is a major partnership with the State of Alaska, Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Emergency Operations Center,
Right.
and the Alaska Broadcasters Association. Without the media, we wouldn't be able to do this. So
Right.
the three groups really work tightly together to do our best to warn, educate the public that this is happening, so they don't wonder and get scared about it. It has been remarkable what we've learned. I mean, it pretty much breaks somewhere every time,
Sure.
but then we fix it, and it gets better. So a quick example is just a few years ago, we used to, when we issued a message, it would activate the entire state.
Right.
Right? I mean, Kotzebue, Nome, Bethel, everybody would be in tsunami warning. And so now we can regionalize it to where the actual event is taking place.
Right.
That's pretty huge.
Right, right. So identifying points of failure and also points of success, and making sure we continue down that successful path so that folks are warned as quickly and accurately as possible.
Absolutely. And, you know, to get our communities involved to prep themselves, prep their businesses, prep their tourism, prep their schools, you know, just make this an annual thing they need to be doing.
Right. So as citizens wanting to be prepared, we should be prepared to learn more about that test that's happening usually toward the end of March every year.
Right, and you should be happy that it's happening.
Right.
Instead of upset. Definitely be
Right.
happy that it's happening.
Right. Just as we test tornado sirens in tornado country, we also have to test the tsunami program as well.
Right, because there isn't enough time. You know, for a local tsunami, the wave will arrive in less than 2 minutes. So it's super important that people know what to do.
Very good. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for helping us know more about the Tsunami Ready program and the test. And the Tsunami Warning Center is a very unique and very important job in the National Weather Service that is just fascinating to me every time I visit the office. So
It's the only one for the continent. You really should come check it out.
it's an international effort.
Yes.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Dave.
And thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
The ice edge. But first, sea surface temperatures, and you'll notice that temps up around the Beaufort seacoast are down very close to that magical point of -1, -2 degrees, and you can see much warmer sea surface temperatures here across the Chukchi and then into the Bering Strait. We still have some cooler waters here in the eastern Norton Sound region, but even much cooler west of St. Lawrence Island. So this area here is certainly being primed to freeze over fairly quickly if the winds would settle down. Here's a look at the ice edge itself updated today, and you'll notice there's still some new ice forming across the Beaufort seacoast. The problem is today that we didn't get a good look with the satellite picture at all to see where a lot of new ice growth may be possible up north. So hopefully more information tomorrow with a better view or scan from the satellite. You can always check this information anytime you want, as well as seasonal outlooks at weather.gov/Anchorage/ice. Here's a look at southeast now. Winds will be a little stronger around the Lynn Canal, 25 knots with a 5-foot sea. Out of the north, otherwise light winds, and that means it's setting the stage for a good opportunity for some dense fog in many locations, with the exception of around Haines and Skagway and Yakutat with that southeasterly flow at 20 knots, 7-foot seas there for Sunday. As we get into Monday, winds start to push onshore a little bit more, 15 to 25 knots there from the west and southwest. A light southerly flow up the inner channel, southerlies in the Lynn Canal, 20 knots with a 4-foot sea on Monday. South central now, northeasterlies will be found across Prince William Sound, and east and southeasterly wind moving across the western part of the Gulf. Anywhere from 9 to 10-foot seas there, 30 to 40 knot winds. Stronger winds west of the Barrens, 12-foot seas there, and north and easterly winds coming down Cook Inlet, 20 to 25. You'll notice more of a southerly flow on Monday, with westerlies returning there west of the Barrens, 25 knots with an 8-foot sea. Easterlies inside of Prince William Sound up to 3-foot seas there, and southwesterlies across the western Gulf, 20 to 25 with 8 to 10-foot seas expected as we go into Monday. For Bristol Bay, look for an easterly flow on Sunday, 5-foot seas on 25-knot winds. South and easterly winds crossing over the Alaska Peninsula, 14-foot seas on the Pacific side, 7-foot seas on the Bering Sea side, and northeasterlies inside of Shelikof Strait with 11-foot seas on the eastern side of Kodiak Island. Those will come down just a little bit, and winds pick up from the south and west. Look for 45-knot winds south of Sand Point to Falls Pass with a 28-foot sea there on Monday. Southerlies inside of Bristol Bay and much stronger winds there north of Cold Bay, 12-foot seas down the Bering Sea coast for your Monday. For the Aleutians, look for strong northerly winds west of Adak, 30 to 45 knot winds, 10 to 18-foot seas there in the west. For the central and east, you'll see northerlies cutting through the central chain and east and northeasterly winds for the eastern chain with 16 to 19-foot seas across the Pacific coast and up to 22-foot seas there on that storm force wind north of Adak and Atka as we get into Sunday. For Monday, improvements there. Northwesterlies for most locations in the central chain, 16 to 18-foot seas on the Pacific side. Southwesterlies there across the eastern chain, 10-foot seas on the Bering Sea coast and 29-foot seas south of Unalaska and Nikolsky. Out west, we have a southeasterly flow returning west of Kiska with a 40-knot wind on Monday. For the west coast now, southerlies in Norton Sound, light winds, small seas, northerlies south of St. Lawrence Island, and north and easterly winds for Nunivak Island, Etoll and Strait, and around the Pribilofs, you're looking at a northeasterly flow, 45 knots with an 11-foot sea on Sunday. For Monday, southeasterlies again wrapping around low pressure as it's moving across the Alaska Peninsula, 10-foot seas around the Pribilofs, 12-foot seas around St. Matthew, and northeasterly winds 30 to 35 out of Norton Sound, out of St. Lawrence Island, and north of Nunivak Island, all looking at about 6 to 9-foot seas on Monday. Now for the north, looking for south and westerly winds for the Beaufort Seacoast. In areas of ice-free waters, you're looking at 5 to 9-foot seas. Again, a lot of that wind is going to chew up the ice in the next couple days. Southwesterlies across the Chukchi coast, 10 to as strong as 30-knot winds with 3 to 10-foot seas there off the coast of Point Lay. That improves a little bit more on Monday with a steady southerly flow. South and westerly winds across the Beaufort Sea. As winds lay down, the ice will reform. And northeasterly winds across Kotzebue Sound, 15 knots with a 3-foot sea for Monday. That's a look at your sea surface conditions as well as your marine forecast. Let's recap tonight's weather. Looks like wind advisories will continue for the eastern Alaska Range and Denali. Gusts up to 60 miles per hour tonight. That should start to improve very quickly. Dense fog advisories for southeast for everywhere except Haines, Skagway, and Yakutat overnight into early tomorrow morning. And winter weather advisories for the central and northern interior and the Kobuk and Noatak valleys. You could see as much as 12 to 23 more inches of snow as we head into Sunday night and early Monday morning. Everywhere else, about 4 to 7 inches of snow with just a scant amount of freezing rain potential. Most areas seeing under 1/10 of an inch. So a lot of weather in your Alaska. Find it online anytime, and thanks again for watching.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.